friends, welcome back to Food Prep Guide. We are going to be showing you how to pressure can chicken today. Now we already have a pressure canning chicken video on the channel, but that was pressure canning shredded chicken. You can also raw pack chicken, which means you don't have to cook it first. You can absolutely just cut it up, put it in the jars, and process it that way, and that's what we're going to be doing today. However, we're not doing store-bought chicken. We are doing our own chickens that we processed over the weekend, and I want to talk to you a little bit about that because there are some differences. If you are considering raising chickens, or maybe you're considering purchasing from a farmer or something like that, there are some pretty significant differences that caught me off guard the first time I ever processed a chicken between store-bought and regular chicken. And for me, it was like it played into managing my expectations on how much I could get out of harvesting chickens and how that would transfer into like pint jars, like how many chickens does it take to fill up this many pint jars. We're going to be talking about that too. We're going to be doing 6 roosters today, so at the end of the video I will come back and show y'all how many pints we got out of 6 roosters. Okay, so differences. First of all, for reference, these are a mixture of Buff Orpington roosters and Rhode Island red roosters. Now, Rhode Island reds are not meat birds, and Buff Orpingtons aren't solely meat birds, but they are like a half and half, a good mixture, good meat bird. The hens are good layers. Lots of good things about Buff Orpingtons. But we did not grow these specifically for meat. What happened was in our spring, actually 2 springs ago, we had we hatched a lot of roosters, but they were all very sweet, very nice. They're like more like pets. One of them is like a cuddle bug for my daughter. She's just always cuddling with that rooster. Just very sweet chickens. And this past spring, we hatched out another round, and there were a lot of roosters in that batch as well. And then we also got some from a friend, and there were a lot of roosters in that batch as well. So you put all of that together, and we have so many roosters that unfortunately we actually had a hen die over the weekend because the roosters were just on it too much, if you know what I mean. And we have to thin out the herd, so to speak, thin out the flock, because they are actually harming our hens. It's just, we got to keep that ratio balanced. So we have 6 roosters here. This is one of the Buff Orpingtons, which is a decent meat bird and a decent size meat bird. And I wanted to show you the size of it. And I especially want to draw your attention to the breasts, which are right here, here, and here. And I'm going to try my best to pull this up to the camera and show y'all the difference without making a huge mess on my kitchen floor. Okay, here is 2 chicken breasts from the grocery store. Oh, it's in a heart shape. Isn't that cute? Okay, and here is the Buff Orpington rooster. And look at the size difference between those 2 breasts. This one has growth hormones and stuff and all of that in it. This is a free-range backyard chicken. So, big difference. A part of me is kind of like, why in the world would I go through all this trouble? Because we process those chickens ourselves. We don't have any processing equipment. Like, we don't have a plucker or, you know, anything like that, any kind of equipment to make it easy. We just do it with knives and do it by hand. So it is kind of labor intensive. It's very disgusting. But my husband and I, we do it 2 by 2. We each have a bird, and we just go until we can't do it anymore. So this past weekend we did 6, and that was enough. That was all we could handle that day. We'll probably have to do another round next weekend, because that's how many roosters that we have right now that need to be thinned out. But a couple of other things I wanted to note was the color. This chicken almost slid off the plate when I had it right there in front of you, so I'm not gonna lift it again, but the color difference too, I want you to notice that. You can like rewind it and go back and look at that side by side if you want, but the color difference, this is far more pale, and this is like a deeper color. Even the breast meat, which is a white meat, was still far darker in the free-range backyard chicken than that one. Okay, a couple of things to note if you are interested in raising chickens is that if you get to the point where you're wanting to raise chickens solely for meat, you're not going to be going with the Rhode Island Reds, and you might not even want to do Buff Orpingtons. Normally it's going to be your Cornish cross hens or something in that line that are bred to grow very fast and be ready for processing at 6 weeks. These roosters Some of them are about 4 months old, and others are almost a year old, like 10 months old. So like I said, we weren't intentionally raising these for meat, because if that was the case, these would be way too old. That's another thing I want to mention. Roosters are just naturally tougher meat than your hens. And old roosters are even tougher meat. But that's not an issue with pressure canning, and that's the beauty of pressure canning, is it tenderizes the meat as it's cooking in the pressure canner. That's just the effect that pressure canning has on it. And I'll show you at the end of this video a finished jar and what it looks like. But it will be just as tender as the canned chicken you get from the store. Okay, I think we're about ready to actually get into the canning process. So this is gonna be a long and gross processing, because I'm just going to be cutting into chunks. I'm not going to worry about getting every single little piece, because I don't want to be in the kitchen for 4 hours doing this. But I'm just going to be cutting off chunks and placing them in this big bowl, and then I'll worry about putting them into jars later. I'm not going to be doing them straight into the jars right now. We'll just get through all 6 birds, get all the meat chunks in this bowl, and then we will start the loading up our jars and all of that canning process. And we'll be back when all of this is cut up. The Food Prep Guide. My name is Jordan. I'm a homeschooling mom to 3, living on 3 beautiful acres with my wonderful husband. A health crisis forced our family to change the way we think about food. Unfortunately, it also put us in financial hardship. Thankfully, the solution to both challenges was the same: to live off the land as much as possible. For us, that means growing a garden, preserving the harvest, raising chickens, and cooking from scratch. It's definitely a family affair. And friends, too. Meet Stacy, researcher, author, and lifelong learner. She entered the world of food preservation in the crazy days of 2020. She joined a gleaning co-op, and a local grocer offered her clearance produce in bulk, and so the adventure began. Together, we're reclaiming the old ways of food stewardship and teaching them to the next generation. If there's one thing you should know about us, it's that we love Jesus and seek to steward his blessings wisely. Our table always has room for one more, so y'all come join us. We are almost ready to start loading our jars, so I need to get my my pressure canner set up. So I'm using the digital Presto electric canner, and so I need to select pressure can. And on this canner, you go ahead and set your time. That's like the first thing you do, is set your time. And for pints, for raw pack chicken in pint jars, at my elevation is 75 minutes. You'll need to adjust for your elevation. If you're higher, then, well, just look that up. Be sure to look that up for you, because I don't have that chart memorized. Okay, 75 minutes. And now it says insert jars, which I already did. I've got 3 inches of water in the bottom, and I've got my rack down there. You see that silver thing there? I've got my rack. And I put my jars half full with water just to weight them down a little bit so they're not floating all over the place. And we're ready to go ahead and get our jars heated up. So I'm going to go ahead and put the lid on. Sorry, I'm trying to do this one-handed. I'm not doing a very good job with the camera. And then I'm ready to hit the next button. And now you see it has warm lit up, so it's heating the jars, and it will beep at me to let me know when it's done heating. And we'll be back to actually load the jars and talk about the canning specifics at that point. Okay, the canner just beeped and let me know that the jars are ready, so now we're ready to actually do the canning process. And I'll show you how much meat we ended up with. As I kind of thought, wasn't much. I don't even know if I'm going to get a full canner load. So right now I'm just dumping out the water that was in these jars, getting them nice and hot, and serving to weight them down. So I'm just getting all that dumped out. So a full load in this canner is 8 pints. And I went ahead and did 8 pints, but I'm not sure that we're going to get 8 pints. When you raw pack chicken, you need to really pack it in. Unlike when you're doing cooked shredded chicken, you don't heavily pack it in, but raw packing chicken, you do. And raw pack, remember, just means not cooking it first. which is what we're going to be doing. But since we have to really pack it in, that's really making me think that we're not even going to get 8 pints. But the good thing is that I have a whole lot of carcasses. I'll show you that part too. And we're going to make chicken broth, bone broth with all of that. And I'm probably going to get 2 or 3 canner loads of chicken broth on my shelf out of this deal. So, and it's, you know, free range. I know exactly what these chickens have been eating and all that. So in the end, it's worth it. It's good. Oh, I need my funnel. Hold on. Okay, so let me show you what we ended up with. Here it is. Now this is a very big bowl, but you can see it's not like it's overflowing full. So there's that. Let me get some kind of scoop so that I don't have to get my hands all raw meat again. Okay, so when you're raw packing or packing chicken uncooked, you want to put in a scoop. I'm going to go ahead and do 2 scoops. And then you'll use like a chopstick or your debubble tool or like a butter knife, although you better to be plastic or wood so you're not chinking, you're not hitting your glass with metal. But you're just going to take it down and you're going to pack down that meat. And you're just going to go through and do that every few scoops. And what's interesting about raw packing chicken is that we're not even going to be adding any liquid. The chicken will produce liquid as it cooks in the pressure canner. And raw packed chicken needs 1 to 1.5 inch headspace. I'm going to go till about right there is between 1 and 1.5 inch headspace. Take the funnel out so I can see better what kind of headspace I'm dealing with. I think it's probably good. I think I'm going to take out 1 chunk so I can get that one down there. Yeah, that's better. Okay, so you can see it's about right there. That is 1 to 1.5 inch headspace of raw packed chicken. Remember, no water. So that jar is done. It's going to be ready for a lid and a ring. So now I'm just going to keep on doing that. Put in a couple scoops, push it down with my little debubble tool, rinse and repeat. So as you can see, you can fit a lot of meat into jars doing it this way. That's why I don't think I'm getting a full canner load, because you can pack in a lot of meat into these jars. You can estimate about 1 pound per pint. Sometimes it can be more like 1.5 pounds per pint. Some people, as far as flavorings go, you do have some liberty here as far as how you want to season it. I don't season my chicken for the most part because I'm not sure how I'm going to use it. And I just don't want to flavor it when I don't know exactly how I'm going to use it. But you can absolutely. One thing I will do sometimes is add in this chicken broth powder. This Orrington Farms chicken broth powder. I'll put in 1 teaspoon per pint jar. And I would do 2 teaspoons per quart jar if I were doing that. And that it just amps up that chicken flavor. The chicken doesn't necessarily need it, but it's just kind of nice to have that extra chickeny type flavor. And I will do that sometimes when I'm canning, even though I don't know how I'm going to use it, because it's just enhancing chicken flavor. It's not like I'm making it garlicky or oniony or anything like that. Got some dark meat in there. That is a big difference between store-bought meat. store-bought chicken, I guess I should say. Looks like I might end up with 6 pints, which is good. I'll probably end up with 10 quarts maybe of chicken broth out of this, but we'll see. It's too much. It's a little bit less than 1.5 inch, but I'm okay with that. See if I can get that down enough to get 1 inch headspace. I'm going to take out a little bit out. If you don't leave enough headspace with meat, you're much more likely to not get a good seal than if you were to not, or than if you were to leave a little bit extra. Like I had a little bit extra space on that other one, and that's fine. But you don't want to go too high. You don't want to go above that 1 inch mark. Okay, I have a conundrum, and let me show you what I'm going to do. Although, disclaimer, this is not 110% by the book, but I understand safe canning. I have studied it till I've been blue in the face, and I know it's going to be okay. And that is that I don't have enough for another full pint. I'm going to chant this down and see how, okay, never mind. Okay, so what I was going to say was I thought when I was scooping that last bit of chicken in there, I thought I was going to have about this much, which is way more than 1.5 inch headspace, right? But what I was going to do was add a little bit of water, about that much, so that when that chicken was producing enough water, it would be somewhere in that 1 inch headspace. But I'm not going to do that because I have way less than I thought I did. So I'm going to look and see those 2 jars that I did a good bit less. Then I'm going to go ahead and scoop out some of this and add it to those 2 jars. And then I'll put the rest in the fridge, and I will just cook it up with whatever chicken dish I make next. We typically eat chicken about twice a week, so I know that I will have some sort of chicken dish to put it in soon, if not tomorrow. Okay, let me see how I'm doing on headspace on this one. Looks a little bit high. Let me see, pick out. Yeah, it's good. Okay. Okay, and remember, we do not add water. Next up, lids and rings. Okay, got my lids, so I'm going to get those on. These are brand new lids. 4 jars, which is my favorite lid company. Oops, I forgot to wipe the rims. Very important, because I know for sure I wiped some chicken on those rims, so I need to get that done. So real quick, let me get a paper towel, get it wet. Normally you need to debubble, but we kind of did the debubbling process when we were packing that chicken down, so I don't need to do any extra debubbling besides that. So I'm just wiping down my rims real quick. Wiping down the rims. Now I can place the lids. Glad I remembered that. Not wiping your rims is one of the #1 causes of the jar not sealing. Now putting rings on to fingertip tight, which is just to the point of resistance. And into the canner they go. Five, 6. Okay, so that was 6 roosters, and we got 6 full pints. 1 pint per bird. Correction, it was 5 roosters for 6 pints. I forgot my mom was here helping me chop it up, so I decided to send her home with one of the birds. So we had 5 roosters, 6 pints. So not a whole lot, but look how much we ended up with, like, bone-wise. And there is a good bit of meat still on here, but that took us about 2 hours to chop up 7, 6, 5. Because we started with 6, I sent her home with 1, so 5 roosters. So we left a good bit of meat. Didn't try to, but it just gets hard when you get down in between the ribs and all the joints and stuff like that. So this huge stock pot will all be used. I'll use my stovetop roaster, and we will do a massive batch of chicken broth. I might even have to separate it up into 2. Probably do two big batches. Okay, let me get this lid on and get this going. So I'm going to seal it, and we are not putting our weight on yet. So I'm just clicking the next button, and it is heating. This will start venting, and at that point it will vent for 10 minutes-ish, and then I will come on and put the weight on where it needs to go. So we have a tutorial that walks you through all the steps on this canner, so I'm not going to do that in this video, but if you're interested, we have, I think we did that in our canning shredded chicken video, so I will pop that on screen and down in the description box below if you want to see all the steps of this particular canner. But for now, we will just bring you back when we're pulling the chicken out of the canner and show you what it looks like, and we'll be back then. Okay, our pressure canner just went off, so I'm going to turn it off, cancel it, and open it up. You can see it's still bubbling. That's good. Look how dark that looks. So much different than the store. It's incredible. So I'm going to set these on the counter over here, and I'm going to not mess with them until the morning. It's about 8:30 right now, so it'll probably be around 8 a.m. tomorrow morning when I mess with these, and that will be 12 hours. You want to let them sit for 12 to 24 hours without touching them, without accidentally bumping them, and that is just going to give them a chance to fully seal if they didn't seal already, which it looks like all of these are already sealed, but sometimes some of them seal after you take it out of the canner and let it cool down a little bit. Okay, hope that was helpful to y'all, and we will see you next time. Don't forget to check out the canning shredded chicken video. I'll pop that right on the screen somewhere right about there. Remember, there are multiple ways to can chicken. This was the raw pack method where you didn't have to cook it first, but you can do shredded chicken and you do need to cook that first. So be sure to check that out. We'll see you next time. Bye.